When I think back to the number of hack and slash games that have come and gone over the years, I begin to realise that they all boasted one very positive quality, that obviously being their leading role character. Bayonetta, a moderately popular female badass of the previous generation of games, hit the hearts of men globally, and in a way, gave a feeling of empowerment to the female side of gaming as well. With Bayonetta 2 exploding exclusively on Nintendo's Wii U, is this a series prepared to take its wacky premise and over-the-top combat by the digital balls and hold it up high as a must-have purchase? Or is Bayonetta 2 just one of those many sequels, appearing as a rehash instead of a revolution? My feelings for the original Bayonetta was one of mixed respect and disdain. It was a title that took the very gameplay foundations of loved franchises like Devil May Cry and Ninja Gaiden and presented it as something fresh and more accessible for Western audiences, while also retaining its Japanese conceptual origins. At the same time, the Asian background works slightly against its female lead. While Bayonetta oozed with a strong overconfidence that a lot of us have dreamed of seeing since the days of Tomb Raider, it also felt lathered with a slightly over-sexualized stench that came off as awkward and slightly in your face at times. Bayonetta 2 aims to rectify that a little, but at the exact same time, not wanting to let it go. The same formula you have experienced previously is there, oh believe me, but this time it feels more refined and thought out, while also sporting an abundance of sass.
I'm afraid I don't have time to dance too long. A friend is waiting for me.
Taking place just a few mere months after the events of the first game, we find our heroine enjoying a splurge of Christmas fashion shopping, before all hell literally breaks loose, and Bayonetta is forced to battle the sides of heaven and hell in not only saving the world, but also her friends. Unlike its predecessor, Bayonetta 2 feeds you, the player, with a much more thought-out story. Sure, it splits its ever-growing levels of batshit crazy at times, with world-killing gods, a cheesy smattering in its plotlines, and of course butt cheeks, but this time it doesn't feel like it's trying to sell sex, but instead an actual story. Sadly for me though, I just couldn't wrap my head around it. Like with a number of other Platinum games, narrative just isn't one of their strong points, and by the end of this game's tale, I found myself gawking at the screen with little care in the world to whatever script these characters were throwing at each other. I found it respectable though, that it flows to the finish with a nicely wrapped bow, but personally I never felt like the writers knew where to take Bayonetta in her adventures. I guess in a sense Bayonetta's second outing is one of a character trapped in storytime limbo, until at least her creators know where her destiny leads. The narrative package is probably one of Bayonetta's weakest points, and sure, while the story is serviceable, it shows that this series is in dire need of a more in-depth tale that isn't scared to move just a smidge away from its not-so-serious roots and towards something a little more climactic. On the other hand though, it carries its bag of crazy nuts with a cinematic elegance that not many games have provided over the years. Fight scenes that bridge the gap between Bayonetta 2's short combat sequences present incredible choreography that in a way feels like Equilibrium had a baby with a pole dancer. In all honesty, it was immensely fun to watch our heroine dispatching these creatures, and it indeed leaves a sense of inspiration to try and pump that finesse through your own game time. As mentioned, the story is a tad forgettable, and this suffers more from Bayonetta's small cast of badly voiced characters. A lot of the supporting roles still feel pointless and underused compared to our lead, but while assets like Luca provided nothing more than a headache the first time around, Platinum Games have actually been able to turn his previously cringeworthy annoyance into something a little more fun and comedically styled, if still providing little justification for his actual existence. When it comes to Bayonetta herself, Helena Taylor, the voice from the first game, brings that cocky British sexiness back through Cereza's vocal cords once again. A lot of her lines, though a tad poorly written, can be difficult to take seriously, like when Bayonetta has to portray more emotional sides to her persona, but that is all forgiven once that carefree charm takes over and decides to overthrow less spoken characters, physically and vocally.
If I didn't know any better, I'd say you were the most persistent stalker I've met yet.
Through gameplay, Bayonetta 2 pretty much works like its ancestor. This time though, the overall core mechanics have been fine-tuned to allow players to experience something a little more welcoming, especially for newcomers that may find the later battles overwhelming and hard to handle. Sure, the difficulty pacing is a rocky trail like the first game, but with plentiful challenge trials in the form of the Mausoleum, gamers will probably have their head wrapped around the highly creative combat in just a few levels. Something many hack-and-slash games in the Japanese development sector suffer from is an immense dependence on their deep combo systems. But while Bayonetta 2 encourages creative playstyles, it is still enjoyable just to button mash and follow the basic combos laid out for you from the start. This is taken even further with a continuation of Bayonetta's customizable hilt system, where players can set 2 weapon templates to switch from mid-battle, like swords on Cereza's shoes, while wielding a deadly arachnid bow. The weapons themselves all feel pretty fun to use, and definitely near the finale, I found that mixing up from the standard handguns was a fun endeavour to actually take part in. It wouldn't be Bayonetta without some pretty sweet dodge moves too, and just like previously, it is just as fun for a second time. Players about to be hit by an enemy's incoming attack can casually dodge the slap to initiate witch time, a sort of slow-mo effect that forces enemies to an animated crawl as you lay out immense uninterrupted damage. Combat sadly can take a turn for the chaotic at times, with the intrusive camera locking at odd angles in battles or blocking off enemy attack animations completely. Sometimes the combat just gets that messy that it can be simply too hard to pay attention to what is actually going on or who is attacking you. This is more against Bayonetta's incredibly vivid weapon FX, but even still the mid-battle confusion can be a frustration, especially when aiming for those high score rankings. For the inner shoppers, Rodin's weaponsmithing returns too with a selection of purchasable loot and special moves that can really help the player elite. Things like turning into bats at the touch of a button to shake off hit damage, or going full body breakdancer if you feel like taking that stylish fighting flurry just one step further. Exploration plays a pivotal role when it comes to unlocking content too, be it immense amounts of lore, stat upgrades, safety net weapon pickups, multiplayer cards, and of course all those lovely lollipop consumables that stack to an excessive degree. The biggest improvement to Bayonetta's gameplay is the increased variety in this title's climactic confrontations. Events like fighting atop a jet, surfing a deadly whirlpool, straddling a demon unicorn, or battling Cereza's own hair summons are just a few of the things to expect along your adventures. This means gameplay isn't just your standard enter the area, fight and recycle, it's smile-inducing to get to experience something different every chapter, which of course provokes intrigue to what will happen in the adventure next. It feels reminiscent of early concepts in Platinum Games' original underdog Vanquish, but this time with sharper aesthetic execution. Variety is the spice of life, as they say, and Bayonetta 2 knows just the right quantity and quality to give its players this time around. This is topped off by an evolved climax mode that originally put Bayonetta in numerous challenge scenarios against heavenly hordes of enemies. For the first time though, players can now go toe-to-toe, cooperatively, in 2-player battles where style in killing enemies is the score. It's silly fun that really didn't need to be there, but its implementation as an addition is greatly welcome. This makes Bayonetta 2 a pretty beefy content bundle, not only its unlockables, extra modes and difficulty settings, but also just the many ways players are given to play, from a casual aspect to the classic combo madness many know and love.
I don't think you'll be able to get a new one of those.
So as you can probably tell, Bayonetta 2 isn't the biggest leap in visual eyesore when it comes to the latest in video game beauty. Sure, the Wii U has a limitation on the level of the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, but Platinum have successfully been able to optimize this installment in 180p crispy goodness, and also at a quick and fluid 60 frames per second. This means that combat, cinematics, and the combination of the two run perfectly with no slowdown whatsoever. Bayonetta herself looks incredibly appealing, and way more welcoming as a character this time around, with a new and improved hairstyle and an outfit that, instead of focusing on the boobs and butt cheeks, now respectfully complements her entire design. This is a good step personally, not in only making our heroine a slow but surely progressing role model, but also a female lead for the masses. Enemy designs also come surprisingly plentiful, and wacky too, like demonic stingrays, monk titans with swords for heads, and many more. Just like the first Bayonetta though, our surroundings do once again follow the road of generic, and showing a running trend of uninspired environments that feels way too comparable to Sonic the Hedgehog's oddly uncreative human cities, for example. It's not the biggest of flaws, but it makes Bayonetta herself, especially by her aesthetic design, feel at times oddly out of place, and it's only until the final quarter that things start to really show sparks of imagination. Lastly is the game's uneven soundtrack, that now consists of classical covers by the snappy Keely Bumford. In a way, I found the tracks lacking in overall clickiness that makes many of them a fitting hit for the series. But admittedly, Keely's cover of Moon River that is featured in a number of Bayonetta 2's fight scenes really sells and grows on you as a great potential theme for the series now. All in all, Bayonetta 2 is an immense improvement over the original outing. It still slips up greatly in its story and poor use of cast, but with near perfectly tuned combat, smooth visuals, and a notable amount of content given, especially for a linear hack and slash. This makes Bayonetta 2 a must-play for any mature Wii U owner, even if not a pilgrim of the first installment. Proxy playthroughs gives Bayonetta 2 a good and glamorous gold muffin, but what about you? What do you think of Bayonetta 2? Proxy would love to know, but until next time, ciao.